everybody, and welcome to another Transition to Greatness. I'm your host, Bruce Starr, and I've been a TV and radio talk show host since 1993, and never before has the information that I've been gathering and learning about been more impactful to more people than what I'm learning now. I was a relationship coach. I gathered for literally 40 years information about how to get along, how to have better dating experiences, how to, find someone and settle down with, and how to get out of your own way. So many things. But now it's been just a blessing. Some people have been really struggling during this pandemic, but it's opened up and changed my entire life, because by not staying busy, it's whatever I was doing, I had the time to do what I really wanted to do. I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do, but when I started gathering this information about what was going on in the world that I wasn't hearing about or seeing on mainstream media. I was a Democrat. I'm not an active Democrat, not a crazy Democrat, but I've been a Democrat my whole entire life. My family, we're all Democrats. My sisters are pretty ardent Democrats now. My mom and dad, and probably their mom and dad before them, New Yorkers were always heavily Democratic. And up until this last year, I never even thought much about it, how I would switch parties or think differently or do something differently. I never even thought anything about it until I was introduced to information. And I want to thank, my friends Cindy and Shelley and Melissa and Buck and so many people who introduced information to me that I had to be crazy not to pay any attention to. And so I did. And the more information I took in, the more I realized how off track the Democratic Party has gone, and how different it is than when I was growing up and when my parents were growing up. So I started studying, and the more I learned, I just couldn't believe the information I was gathering. I've done several shows now, and today's show is going to kind of be a summary of just some of the things that's gone on in the last week or so, because it's been about a week since I've done a show. So I just want to, get started right away by starting with some great news that, we've all heard that there's been peace treaties in the Middle East. Well, there was breaking news a few days ago by the Hamas announces deal to end escalation with Israel. And that was amazing, because that happened right after the peace deal that the president put together with Israel and the United Emirates. And then just days ago, there was another peace deal announced in the Middle East with Bahrain. And people would just never believe that this was even possible. And not only is it possible, but it's happening. And it's very, very exciting to be able to talk about it. So you will notice that I'll be talking about different subjects, kind of different themes throughout the show, because there's just so much information that I'm gathering that it's really hard to have it all organized. But one of the great things that's going on, one of the things that we're moving towards, is something called Nasara Jisara. And it's basically about a new world based upon peace and equality and kindness. And I'm just going to quote a couple of things here by some people that I respect, that I have learned from over the last several months. Charlie Ward and Freak have said that the Q team, the Alliance, have taken more than 50 years to figure out this plan and have striven to implement it. They tried to implement Nasara on 9/11/2001, but that effort was broken up. Now, there's a whole show, 2 shows, 3 shows that can be done about the World Trade Towers being blown up, and almost anyone in their right mind would wonder why Building 7 just collapsed all on its own. That had to open up anyone's eyes. And if I were you, I would do a great deal of research on what really went on during 9/11/2001. Now, there's a Chinese dragon family. They are not the communist Chinese, but they're a group that descended from the Himalayan line. Now, they are funding or partially funding this entire global transition. And there's a video that was done. Hold on. There was a video that was done on August 18th of this year. And Charlie said, what most people are oblivious to is this whole financial transaction from the SWIFT banking system to the QFS quantified banking system that's been funded by this Chinese dragon family, a good dragon family, where the dragon bonds were valued several weeks ago. That was estimated in the multi-quadrillions. There is so much money in the world that has been literally stolen from us by just, a few dozen people, a few dozen families. And I want you to remember this. There's enough money in the world to pay everyone a universal basic income. Now, this is not people being nice to us. This is not people feeling sorry for us. Monies in so many forms and shapes has been stolen from us over the last many, many, many years. And this is all coming to an end. Nisara meaning nationally here in the United States, Jisara is globally. And there's going to be a redistribution of wealth because there is so much money being put aside for everyone where we can start to be equal. Everyone, South Americans, Central Americans, Africans, Indonesians, poor people everywhere will soon be coming on board on this equal level with everyone else. And it's going to be a phenomenal situation. Now, I started talking about the quantum financial system. Remember this, QFS. Now, there's a must-watch movie that is out there, and it's going to show you about the fiat dollar. Now, what is the fiat dollar? The fiat dollar started happening in the last 50 years or so when we went off the gold standard, and whoever, the World Bank, the people that were behind this way of doing things, they went off the gold-backed system and they went to this printing money system without any backing. Well, that is coming to an end. The quantum financial system is in place. The fiat dollar within the next year will be completely replaced by new currency. And this new currency is gorgeous. If you want to know more about it or see a video on it, just go to my website, Transition2Greatness.net, and just look at all the videos there, and you will eventually come across a video that shows what our new currency is going to look like. It's really spectacular. So let's talk a little bit about the COVID. This is going to go down as one of the most controversial times in our entire history. There's going to be many, many people who are going to be on the wrong side of history when this puzzle is all put together and straightened out. One example, 500 German doctors and scientists are out there questioning the official COVID-19 story. And they say it's high time that we look into this and take this into our own hands. One member of the ACU reportedly confessed that, quote, "We have a lot of evidence that it's a fake story all over the world," unquote, implying not that the virus itself is fake, but that the danger it poses has been fiercely overestimated. Now, the video, of course, was removed by YouTube for violating the rule that no information which dissents from the World Health Organization, the WHO, their stance in the coronavirus may exist. So you cannot say anything or put a video out there that says something different from the World Health Organization, no matter how truthful that video is and no matter what lies the WHO has been putting out there. Censorship of the factual coronavirus information is nothing new, as YouTube has quite a history of removing content from doctors and journalists. In April, they deleted a local NBC press conference of two California doctors. I won't say their names. I could, but I just, for time saving, simply for suggesting that the scale of the pandemic is not as vast as global authorities say. So video upon video upon video is being released and censored if they come up with information such as reporting on the hydroxychloroquine, a treatment for the virus. Now, here's some bad news that's put out by the New York Times Health. By the way, you have to be very careful about paying any attention to any mainstream media. We're going to talk more about that in a little bit. Up to 90% of people who test positive for the virus are highly unlikely to spread it to others, according to data from 2 studies. A vast majority of people testing positive did so because they had a cold or flu in the last few years, and they exhibit no signs of sickness. Imagine if you had a cold or a flu in the last few years, you are going to test positive. And people are wondering, why are all these tests coming up positive? So many tests coming up positive. This is why. The worst disaster in modern U.S. history. I'm not going to mention the governor's name, directing people back into nursing homes who were sick, and 10,000 lives have been lost in nursing homes. And that represents less than 1% of our population, but nearly half of the coronavirus deaths at the time of this study. Here's a study out of UCLA, Stanford study, and Stanford study finds an average of 50 to 64-year-olds, the chances of dying from COVID-19 are 1 in 19 million. 1 in 19 million if you're 50 to 65. And they're still making us wear masks. They're still insisting that healthy people can spread this virus to other healthy people. It's just ridiculous. Whoever is running these politicians, giving them this information, forcing them to make these choices, they are on the wrong side of history, and they're all going to pay at the end. Now, the riots. Lawlessness abounds on the streets of the cities. These are not peaceful demonstrators. They are lawless anarchists, and they're on the streets rioting. Everyone knows that whatever they do in a lot of mainstream media will go unreported. And also, the tens of thousands of arrests that happen across the country, they are released the next day with no bail. Talk about lawlessness in certain cities. Who makes those laws? Is the governors, the mayors? There's no fear of the law because there is no law. Terrible. Now, one guy I saw in a video, he tried to block the streets by throwing cans and garbage. And when some guy leveled him and knocked him down to the ground, he was seen looking for police to complain. Now, other protesters were hit by drivers in Times Square. And what did they do? They went looking for police to file reports. You can't make this up. Cities and states with Democratic leaders are having riots, and up until a week or so ago, not admitting it, you weren't seeing it on mainstream media. And what they were doing is when they first started coming out with it, and the Democratic nominee finally admitted after months and months and months of violent demonstrations, who did he blame? Trump, for not stopping the rioting. A week after the Democratic National Convention and the Republican National Convention, there were no polls on mainstream media. None were available. It was unbelievable. Well, whatever polls are coming out, they didn't want anybody to see it because people are catching on that they don't want to be a part of a party that is so based on violence. Don't want to be a part of it. And I don't blame them. Now, we're reading stories about rioters being flown from city to city, being driven by buses from city to city. There's ads, look it up yourself, in Craigslist all over the country looking to pay rioters. Don't believe me, look it up. These rioters are dressed in black. They're put up in hotels. Now, after listening to recorded dialogues at the murder scenes in Portland, These rioters are military squads, well trained. And you're hearing a lot of them saying, down with America. Down with America. It was reported dozens of buses filled with hired rioters drove down to Fort Lauderdale, a Democratic-run city. Thank God nothing ever happened. They were stopped. Positive forces, folks. The tide has changed. I have noticed in the last week, in the last 3 or 4 days, there's been so many indictments, there's been so many arrests that we are starting, you'll see, you're not going to hear about it on mainstream media, but there's been so many arrests and so much of this criminal activity, they're being rounded up and they're being arrested. And see, what's happening is they thought they can keep getting away with it. And I have to say this, that democratically elected officials were letting them get away with it. They were letting them out, letting them out, letting them out. But the hammer is coming down. And just when they think they are unstoppable, they're going to be arrested and they're going to be staying in jail. Now, have you ever asked yourself, who's funding these riots? Have you ever, how is this happening? How is this even possible? Someone at the very top is financing them. They're getting money from a shadow manipulators, shadow leaders. And what do they want? Why is all this happening? Because they want a violent reaction from law enforcement to incite a civil war, a civil disruption. They want our country to go down the drain. They want everything in our country to fall apart so that they can come in and take over. Now, I have an interesting question for you. After hearing all this, are people ready to be desensitized with better news? Have you thought about that? Hey, in the world of sports, college football games they're playing. They're encouraged to start their games. They're out there. People are in the stands. The president wants the U.S. to get back to normalcy. And he knows that we're not getting anybody sick. He knows the masks aren't working. 99% of people who got this, and many of us did get it, didn't feel it, didn't even know we had it. NBA basketball ratings are way down. Did you even know that the playoffs are going on now? I didn't. People aren't watching anymore. They're hearing so many terrible things. The players are making terrible statements against our country, against peace. Hey, the football season started this past weekend. How many of you knew that? I didn't know until yesterday or the day before. Ratings are way down in football as well. And I hope the owners of all these teams are going to get on the right side of history and not stay on the wrong side of history. Because the silent majority is winning. Larger and stronger than anti-government institutions believe. And once they figure this out, everything is going to open up and change. There's going to be a dramatic number of arrests. You're starting to hear about them in show business, corporate. Do you know how many CEOs have resigned in the last year or so? Thousands. Thousands getting out of the way. They think they're getting out of the way of what's going to come down, of their greed, of their dishonesty. Thousands have stepped aside in countries, in corporations, in politics. So many, go to my website, so many politicians have been arrested for the pedophilia acts and their activities with young children. So many. Go to my website, find out. There's a whole page of politicians who say one thing and do something completely different. Now, you have to ask yourself, why are these governors and mayors, Democratic mayors, why are they letting their cities and states burn up to heck? People living there don't want this. They're not going to vote for them in the next election. Why are they still letting their cities and states burn up? Well, it might have something to do, follow the money. China threatening to withhold investments. How many of these leaders are interacting with China? The proof is coming out. Who's to blame to have them look away from the real problems that are going on? And you know what they're doing instead? They're saying, don't look over here with us interacting with China. Look over here. Trump is blamed for these riots. Trump has asked each and every one of these governors and mayors dozens of times, let us go in and stop this. Have they done it? Some have. Just ask in Minnesota. How many hours after the government went in to quiet those rioters? How many hours until it was done? One. They came in and 1 hour later, it was gone. You know, I read New York Times headlines, and I saw this the other day. Finally, when Biden condemns rioters, you know what he said after that? Why won't Trump? Imagine him not being aware that Trump's entire dialogue is law and order, and how every single Republican, again, I'm not a politician, I'm not into politics that much, but every single Democratic state and city has had violence, many of them. And Trump has asked every single one of those mayors or governors, he's here to help. He's here to help. Now, there's a challenge to waking people up about what's going on in the deep state. Now, do you believe in the mainstream media? Do you still believe in it? Do you watch? You know, the other day, someone said, I only watch it once in a while to get an update on what's going on. It's the worst thing you could do. They're only telling you what they want you to know. Do you know that Democrats for months and months had no idea that there were violent rioting going on, looting, burning of cities, burning of buildings, burning of innocent people's businesses? They had no idea. Why? It wasn't in the mainstream media. Do you still believe in the mainstream media? Finally, 63%, that's 2/3 of the people in the world, are skeptical of the mainstream media. And that's up from 1/3 before the pandemic. Now it's 2/3. Now, finally, Trump is letting people know that there is an invisible enemy out there. Not finally, he's been letting people know for a long time. He keeps saying there's an invisible enemy out there. The storm Who are they after? He says they're after me, not you. Because what he's doing, he's breaking them up. He's breaking them down. He's breaking this elite group of people that have been running the world. He is breaking them down. I've done other videos. I'm not going to go into too much about this, but just think about this. He crashed the oil industry run by the elites. Crashed it. And now he's built it back up to where American companies will be able to survive. He's changed the banking system. He's crashed the pharmaceuticals. Instead of people having to pay $1,000, $1,500 a month for their pharmaceuticals, he's got it down to 35, and he's going to make it competitive with other countries in the world. Whatever people in other countries in the world are paying, that's what Americans are going to pay. He's crashing one institution after another. He's taken away the Fed from this multi-trillion-dollar making money for the Fed, making money for the elite. He has taken that away from them and has put it into the Treasury. Does anybody even know that? This is perhaps the greatest move in American history in 100 years. Does anyone even know about this? That the Fed, which has been controlling our money and the world's money for 100 years, is now no longer in the control of the elite? This is an incredible, these are just some of the things. How about world peace? It's not just a statement made by women going after, beauty pageants. It's happening. Trump has made deals with many, many countries in the world, and he has saved the hardest for last, and it's happening. It's happening. There are dark shadows in every industry, and he is draining the swamp and resetting leadership everywhere in the world. Now, Trump has been the backing of billions of people across countries around the earth, not just here. You know why? Because he's a businessman. He's not a politician. He's a businessman that's been in touch, that has been running top businesses, whether you like him or not. We all know he's made mistakes. We all know he's made enemies. Anyone that gets as successful as he has been is going to make enemies. We know that. I'm not calling him an angel. But I am looking at the tremendous amount of good that he's done. And even someone very near and dear to me said yesterday, 6 books have come out on what a terrible character Trump is. Of course these books are going to come out. Who do you think pushed them out? The elite who want him out of power. They want him out of power. They are not being threatened by Trump. He's done them in already. It's just the last 10% of their energy is spent on what they're doing now. Now, here's crazy stuff. This is out of Sacramento, California. Governor Gavin Newsom has released new guidelines for California's counties looking to reopen their businesses, saying that counties may only begin to lift their lockdowns. Listen to this, folks. They'll only be able to lift their lockdowns once a cure for death itself has been found. You can't make this up. Once, quote, once we have beaten the last enemy, death itself, then we can slowly begin to reopen over a 40-year period, quote, unquote. Newsom said at a press conference. Folks in California, You elected him. Counties that report even one death for any reason, oh my God, will be forced to keep closures in place indefinitely. Indefinitely. These are his words, folks. Until we have answered the eternal question of how to reverse aging and ensure no one can die ever. These are quotes. We can't be too careful. We must all cower in fear until death has been conquered. It's the governor of California. I'm not even going to talk about the new pedophile law recently passed in California. It's disgusting. You're going to have to research it yourself. So, with California shut down, New York shut down, Boston shut down, Illinois, Chicago shut down, between June and July, the unemployment rate declined in 30 states, including 9, and remained essentially the same in 11 states compared to July of 2019. The unemployment rate was up in all states and Washington, D.C. The employment rate was up, way up. Now, the unemployment rate was highest in Massachusetts, a closed-up state, at 16%, up from 2.9 in July of 2019. 18 states had unemployment rates in the double digits during July, but unemployment rates were lowest in Utah, Nebraska, Idaho, Kentucky at less than 6%. Idaho has completely opened up its state. Most states experienced employment increases between June and July. Still, 49 states in Washington, D.C. had fewer employees on the payroll this July compared to July last year. It's just crazy. I can just go on and on, but I'm not going to bore you with the statistics. Imagine how the economy is coming back so strongly without New York, without California, without Illinois, without all these states still in shutdown. Imagine how much better the unemployment figures would be, the employment figures would be, if these politicians would let their states open up and let small business get back instead of grinding them into the ground. Let people get back to work. You know, if Nancy Pelosi can get her hair done in person, America can vote in person. I'm sure you know by now that Pelosi requested a lockdown beauty shop to open up just for her, where she walked around and got her hair done without a mask. How does that work? It's okay for her not to wear a mask. It's inconvenient. Duh. You know who you have to feel bad for in a Biden speech? And Dave Rubin tweeted this, the sign language guy. He has a tough time doing the sign language for Biden. So, another announcement, the CDC directives halt evictions through the end of 2020. Many facing evictions across the country, but especially in democratically run states where business have not opened up, there you cannot evict them. Now, here's some news for you. The UN, did you know it was a Rockefeller entity? See, we all think of the UN as this world organization here to help everybody. The UN has branched off into the World Health Organization, which has other branched within its codex, the Food and Drug Administration. The WHO is a part of the UN apparatus, and we find that the WHO was very quick to issue a pandemic alert when there was zero proof of it. Most of us know that the WHO is heavily funded by the Gates Foundation, who is pushing these, what many people are saying, are terribly harmful vaccines. Have you heard of the Event 201? Event 201 was a 3.5-hour pandemic tabletop simulation test run exercise by the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, World Economic Reform, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Took place October 2019. October 2019, not that long ago. This was a test run done for a worldwide pandemic. 1 month before the first case of virus was reported in the world in Wuhan. Now, some good news mixed in. Congressman proposed bill to withhold unemployment benefits from violent protesters. It's a start. What do you think about this? Any elected official, from the health department heads to mayors to governors, need to answer to a court why they violated our constitutional rights and should be sentenced to prison. What do you think about that? Okay. Let's see. You know, I didn't realize that there's some questions. Let's take that now. From Arthur, when does this transition take place? After the election? And he doesn't believe in anything that the mainstream media says. You know, the transition is going to take place. It's already taking place, but we're not feeling it right now. Now, I'm going to say within the next 6 months, everyone will be feeling this change. Everyone will be aware of it. Okay? And Arthur says all vaccines are harmful. If you are healthy and keep up your immune system, you will typically be fine, of course. There's no need to put anything artificial in your body. Now, who tells us to do this? You know, it's Bill Gates. So let's see. Newspapers, wondering what happened to the New York or LA Times that you grew up trusting and believing in? New Yorkers remain how great the Post and the News was way back when. Newspapers today are highly controlled, highly sophisticated propaganda operations representing a ruthless power elite dedicated to using fear to advance a totalitarian agenda for people, and you never voted for them. Now, the Associated Press printed this. Can I get the coronavirus twice? Scientists recently said they have evidence showing it's possible. But how often it happens, no one knows. The ACLU, Joe Biden's former White House stenographer, said the vice president's public speaking ability has deteriorated significantly since leaving office, to the point where he's not the same Joe Biden. It's a complete difference from what he was in 2017. I won't say names who said this. He has lost a step and doesn't seem to have the same mental acuity as he did 4 years ago. He doesn't have the energy. He doesn't have the pace of speaking. He's a different guy. Whoa. How many of us heard about being somebody completely different and how that happens? So remember this, every time a Democrat says Trump only wanted to be president in order to enrich himself and his family, he sacrificed so much and agreed to take on this incredible, monumentous task. And he has not taken $1 of salary since he's been doing this. And he's used all his own money in the re-election campaign. And Jeremy says they're pushing scare tactics to keep us in submission, economic and societal lockdown, and we have to wear diapers on our faces. You know what I have, folks? I wish I had it right here. I put on my mask. I resent having to wear this mask. Why don't you do it too? You know what else I do? Every week I send emails to the governor, to the mayors, to the councilmen, telling them how much I do not want them to continue taking away my rights, my constitutional rights. They are taking away our constitutional rights. And they need to hear from you. And if they don't, they'll just keep doing what they want to do. Now, here's what they write in response to Trump saying, you know, he uses his own money on re-election campaigns, whatever it takes, he says. Well, here's what they write. Trump's threat to hold taxpayer funds hostage is yet another foolish and dangerous campaign stunt. At its core, it's an attempt to suppress demands for racial prejudice and transformational change to our policing institutions. You know what? It's so sickening, I can't even read this. Here's another report, and we're coming to the end here now. 25 members of Mueller's legal team. Remember, he's the man that did this huge research on what went on with Russia and Trump. His 25 members of his legal team wiped out cell phones clean. There's nothing on them, according to the DOJ. Why do you think they did that? Is it because they were doing something illegal and wrong? FBI Portland, oh, you got to get this, folks. This is amazing. You're going to love this. FBI Portland tweeted this yesterday. Reports that extremists are setting wildfires in Oregon are untrue. Stop spreading misinformation. Only share information from trusted official sources. Do you believe this? Folks, I got to show you this. I'm going to share my screen with you. This is a picture. This is a picture of all the fires in the western part of our country. There are reports, people are being arrested. These fires are all along interstate highways. And there's word that people are being paid to start fires everywhere. And they're arresting them. Fires are all along the main highways. There are this many fires right now burning. Thousands and thousands of fires. I have family that lives up in Oregon. peaceful state. Look at all the fires. Look at all the fires up in this area. Look at all the fires in California. Horrible. So I want to end with letting you know that we are, no matter what you're seeing on mainstream media, we are a beautiful, rich, and part of an abundant world. It's coming for us all. A pristine, divinely restored planet, a divinely restored kingdom, divinely restored humanity, all for a wondrous, peaceful, miraculous golden age that's coming. It's already here, but we're just not quite seeing it yet. The newspapers, the mainstream medias are saying these are friendly fires. Friendly fires. Thank you, Arthur. Thank you so much for the kind words. If you know people that need to hear this information, please send them to my website, Transition2Greatness.net. I have dozens of videos there now, and dozens of other videos from other people who are putting across great information. I want to thank Miami for being back there behind me. Oh, by the way, I should show that. You know what? I'm going to show that picture again, and here's why I'm going to show it. Newsom, the governor of California, has stated publicly that these fires are a result of the changes in our environment. Now, if you'll look at the Canadian border, how can fires from our environment stop at the Canadian border? Come on. Now, I'm not saying that there's no fires in Canada at all, but he said that this is an environmental problem, not I don't know what else he can say. We'll see you again very soon. Thank you all for sitting in. I appreciate it, and we'll see you again soon.